Good morning to all of you in the Devil Dog Day Trade community. My name's Michael, and I'll be taking you all through my day trading setup process for today, December 10th, 2021. A special welcome to all of you who have served or are serving in the armed forces. And here we do save the best for last, so a big welcome to all my fellow Marines out there. Semper Fi, Jarheads. For those of you joining us for the first time, we're on a journey together here, and we have people from all skill and experience levels as part of this community. However, there will be information passed in this session that will relate to each different level of experience and understanding. But if you have a question or comment or don't understand something, just put a question there in the chat box and we'll get to it. If you're watching this show later on, leave us a comment and we'll make sure that we get an answer back to you as quickly as we can. Just a reminder, the feed here is delayed by up to 30 seconds on YouTube, so if we don't respond immediately to a question in the chat box, that could be the reason why, but we'll make sure that we do get to it as the show goes on. So first thing we do every day is to review what happened in the last 24 hours, and then also a look ahead to the next 24 hours, and we use that for the tool Forex Factory to look at that to see if there's going to be any impactful events today that could affect our day trading setup. So let's jump over there real quick. And yesterday, Thursday, only thing that we had that we were potentially concerned about, actually two things, sorry, was unemployment claims. That happened at 8:30 during the show yesterday, and there was no real impact there. You saw the number was a positive one, 184,000 versus expected 218K. So unemployment claims are dropping overall. The other thing we did point out was the 1:01 p.m. 30-year bond auction. And I actually said yesterday that typically doesn't have a huge impact on the market. But then when that hit, we did see a pretty significant spike in the bonds, at least much more than what we were expecting for. So just a good example of why we track these things. That just would have been a good area. If you knew that was coming, you wouldn't have put in any short time frame trades in on the bonds because you could have been stopped out on those very quickly. Looking forward to today. At 8:30, we've got our CPI. And again, if these things are something you want to look more into, just click on this folder right here on the right-hand side. It gives you a better explanation of what this is and what the impact is of it. The only thing that I really care about is just knowing that it's coming up and just knowing that this is something that could hit the index markets at 8:30. And so I just want to be cautious of having any short time frame trades up at this point. That's pretty much it we have throughout the day. So 8:30 is the only thing that we're really worried about today, want to watch for. All right, flipping over to our correlation markets. Starting off with the DAX on a daily chart here. You can see just still moving up from our weekly area. We've got these two zones here. Let me jump down actually to the 60-minute chart to show those. So we got the two zones down here below, or three, sorry, and the bottom one is actually embedded within this weekly zone. That's just, again, another indication that we've got some strength in this market. So even if price comes back down here, we would expect it to turn and continue back up again. So overall, we just look at this and just understand that the German markets have been open for a little while now, while the U.S. markets are closed. It's a potentially good indication of what the U.S. markets might do when they open up. And again, we just continue to see, bigger picture overall strength in this market, especially after that little bit of a sell-off yesterday. All right, flipping over to TradeStation. For the remainder of our charting, goes $1 first. And won't even take a look at the daily chart because we're still in that same exact range here. Actually, we're still in the same range on the 240-minute chart as well. So no need to look at that. There is just nothing here at all that is really different day to day. I'm just going to zoom in here on the 60-minute chart just to see if anything else has changed for us. And as you can see, we still have this areas up above. We've got the 96.60 area that has already been used, 96.70, which is unused. And I'm just going to slide over here to see what that zone actually look like. And yeah, it's pretty solid one. So we could certainly see price move from that area if we get up there today. Looking down and left. So we do have a nice little formation right here, and I'll draw it up. The only reason I'm just even a little bit concerned about it is, again, we're still right in the middle of that 60-minute and 240-minute, or daily and 240 minute kind of white space area here. So these are going to be slightly lower probability trades, but the zone formation looks pretty good. And so we'll go ahead and draw it out. And again, I would just be, a little cautious as price comes in there. Maybe look for some other indicator. I'm going to draw a couple of other zones here as well of just areas that we could see potential price changes at. But again, just generally speaking, these areas are still, still a little bit lower probability just because they're in the middle of all that that space on the 240 minute zone. And we really need price to get outside of those areas before we're looking for any higher probability or longer term trades here. All right, moving over to the VIX volatility index. We are continuing to drop down here there's nothing new on the daily chart. We didn't create anything new. I just point out on the 240 minute chart here, we drew this area yesterday. We called it a lower probability one just because it was so close to the bottom of this overall move down here. However, as you can see, it did work for at least a little bit of a move off. But again, we're not really tracking these smaller moves in the VIX because we don't trade it. We're looking for the VIX to define the overall longer term moves of the index markets. And so that's really what we're looking for here. However, this is a good indication, especially with price hitting the index markets where it did, going down last night and hitting some of those medium time frame demand zones, that this could be an indication that we're going to kind of return back to the kind of more normal area down here in the 18 to 16 range. All right, let's look at our 60-minute chart, see if we've got anything new that's come up in the last day that we need to look out for. And the only thing I'm seeing here is we got this, the Bollinger Bands are coming to this, a pinch move here, where it's starting, or sorry, squeeze. And all that means is that you'll get a bigger move out of this area. Again, if you don't have a zone to trade off of, you don't know which direction it's going to go. So we're not going to guess here. Just know that there could be a potentially bigger move coming out of this area today. All right. Moving on, let's go ahead and take a look at our index markets. And we'll start with ES, S&P 500. And just what you'll see here between the ES and the NASDAQ is the reason why we had this move over the past day and change here, right? We were coming off of this 240-minute area right here. This also coincided with a 15-minute supply zone on the NASDAQ as well. And when you looked at overall context on a daily chart, we saw that we were high in the context, which means shorts were a higher probability of working. And so that's just, that's the reason why we had this dip. We were looking for price to come a little bit lower, honestly, before we turned back up again. So I'm not completely settled that this is the bottom of this correction. So just kind of understand that we're in a little bit of a limbo area here where the trend has not picked a clear direction right now. And so we just want to be cautious of that. As I look at the 60-minute chart, again, was expecting price to come a little bit lower, at least down into this area that we had defined as an area to watch before it turned. Now, price did turn, and it has now created two zones on the 60-minute time frame, which could give us an indication that we may have a little bit of strength today. That coupled with that 240-minute zone working on the VIX to push it down. So that's another one of those correlation areas. And so we've got this zone right here, which price has already hit a very quick retracement into it. And you've got this one down here. Now, both of these zones were created within the London market open. So that's another positive indicator. We tend to try and stay away from zones that are created in just pure overnight trading. But ones in London market where we get some of that additional volume in there, those zones are a little bit stronger. So another good indication that these ones could potentially work for us. again, just to be clear on this, right? We're still in a sideways trend for trades at this level. So these are not long-term trades. These are not ones I would hold on to. I would just be a little bit more cautious about them, especially today, right? So today is the last day of the week, right? And so depending on what your trading plan says, you may not even be able to hold trades over the weekend. So really want to look at shorter term trades today. You also have contract rollover is completing today. So, and actually I'm going to just pull that up here because that actually might be something that's good. So I'm going to jump back over to my TradingView chart, and I want to bring this up. Bar chart. Let's see here. I just want to look at this real quick. This is what I use for looking at volume of markets. So I've got futures, and let's go to indices. So what you'll see here, and it's maybe a little bit hard. Let me zoom in on this. Right, there we go. There you go. Zoom in on this, and so what you'll see here at the very top row, you got your two ES contracts. ES Z21 is the one that we've been currently trading. You'll see here the volume is 120,000 so far today. ES H22, which is the next quarter's contract, came online, and we actually switched over on some platforms 2 days ago on that. But you'll see here the volume is 108,000 on that one. So the volume is close to the same. So today you can still take a trade in ES Z21, but just know that come when the markets open on Sunday night, that volume is going to be almost at zero, and your volume will have switched over to ESH22. So just another point to remember as you're trading the futures contracts around rollover time of what your actual date is when you can switch contracts. My rules state I can trade the outgoing contract up through the Friday of that last week. So all of my day trades today will be in ESZ21. And then day trade, and then all trades are starting on Sunday night would be on ESH22. Let me switch back over to our TradeStation platform now. So we've got again some pretty good some good indications of at least short-term potential strength coming in the ES market. I would still like to see this area right here break 46.87 before I had confirmed, even a shorter term uptrend there. So just look for that as well. And let's go ahead and jump down to our 15-minute chart, see if there's anything that's really close from a day trade perspective that we could get into here. And again, overall, just trying to kind of give the bigger picture, right? Bigger, medium time frame, we're still in this uptrend, but you can see here of the last 2 days, we're now on a 15-minute perspective, we're back in another downtrend, which puts the overall, trend really just kind of sideways. Again, it gives us this area of kind of indecision. So we just want to be cautious of that. And I'm going to zoom in on the whole entire area here. As I'm looking down and left, I'm seeing, some of these zones here on just a very, very short time frame overnight. You had this one that correlates with that 60-minute zone that we just popped up there. And I'll draw that one out for us. Got it right here. But as you can see, right, this subject, I certainly wouldn't take this again. Price came right back down in here, popped up, and gave us a, there we go. Let's see here. Yeah, you got about a 3-to-1 profit target on this one already. Right, this line here that I use is my standard 4-to-1. So this would have been, again, one of those very short-term trades. If you were watching this, as price came into here, just literally 30 minutes ago, we could have caught this, and this would have been just a real quick day trade here. So look down and left, this one right here is not good enough for me. So 830 just hit, so those numbers came out, and as you can see right on the screen, apparently they're positive numbers. Right, price is just going up very, very clearly from here. So the positive sign for us overall for where things might continue to move today. Yeah, apparently those numbers were very good. Actually, I'm going to let me jump back over here and take a look at them. Again, you kind of see this live in color, right, of what happens as these numbers hit. So you can just see here, I'm hitting this refresh here. Okay, so CPI, yeah, so green. So month over month, we are green, 0.1% up. And then core CPI is flat, which again is generally speaking positive, right? Anything that's not negative is markets usually view as positive there. So that's why we're getting that push up right now. And flipping back over to TradeStation. So yeah, I don't like this lower zone right here. It's not clean enough for me. And as I look down and left, again, getting out of this greenish background box into the really light gray one. This is now just pure overnight trading, much lower volume. I tend to stay away from those as much as possible. We'll zoom out here. So that was your day trade, really on the lower time frames. As I'm looking up and left, I'm not seeing any formations here that I want to get into. And number two, I wouldn't take a short here, anyways. Just too much overall strength right now. Okay, let's jump over to a NASDAQ and see. We've got this. We should have close to the same picture there, and then just refresh. Right, this is the 15-minute zone that I was talking about that correlated with the 240-minute zone on ES. So here's the one on NQ, and we did get to that negative divergence on RSI here, also high in the context on the daily chart. So that's why this one was an okay one to take as a short. I still didn't. It's just against my trading plan. But as you can see, it worked out very well. A very strong zone. I think the price came up into here like 4 or 5 times, which is very unusual for a short on an index market, right? You're fortunate enough to get those to work once for you, much less 5 times. So yeah, showing you that, and then I'm going to back out back to the daily chart here real quick to just show overall context of where we sit. And we are still coming up out of this zone that we had drawn before that hit our target already. Of course, these are, when you have daily zones, oftentimes you want to stay in those much longer, so that 4-to-1 target for a day trade may be way too short for you for a longer term trade if you're using daily zones or weekly zones or something of that higher time frame. So we are continuing to move up here. Again, we are in the top area of our context view. So we want to be careful taking longs up here now. We want to wait until price gets back down more towards the center and even lower in the overall context. Going back to our 240-minute area here. Let me just clean up some of these channels that I was working with last night. And here's what our 240-minute area looks like. Remember, the purple line here is still this line to break before we officially change trend state on NQ. ES broke this earlier this week, but NQ still hasn't broken it. So this is still a completely sideways trend. So again, just be very cautious of that and make sure that your trading plan allows for you to take trades in the in a sideways trend. But we do have some pretty good areas down below. And again, as long as these are close to the middle of the context on the daily chart. So again, probably medium level probability that these will work. The more time that passes, especially if we break this area here and actually put us in an uptrend again when price comes back down here, much higher probability of these areas working. All right, jumping over to our 60-minute area. Again, let me clean some of this stuff up. I was just working on a few things last night as part of our training curriculum. And zooming in on this, again, I said it a couple of times now already, right? I was expecting price to come back down a little bit lower during this corrective phase and down into something like this area right here on the NQ, which also corresponded with that area on the ES. But we didn't quite get down there, and we've got that little bit of strength coming up now. Here is the same 60-minute areas that were on NQ, were on ES, and as you can see, that top one has now worked out pretty well. Probably need a little bit higher to actually hit a target from there. But again, this shows you the power of watching both, multiple index charts, and what you'll see here is when those zones line up, that's just another positive indicator that the trade is going to work for you overall. I'm going to pull that one off. I'll leave this one on. I'm still would still be interested in taking something here if price does retrace down to this area. Showing this this area that I had drawn before. This is a 30-minute chart, so not one we look at every day, but just to show what happened here. We had this zone drawn, and we had price come down into this general area 2 times, and that usually means when this happens, these zones, oftentimes you would consider this zone not as strong, because you've already used up a lot of the unfilled orders and a lot of the imbalance in this area here by coming close to it this many times. Because it is a long position, so it's a buy in the index market, you can sometimes still keep it on and actually use it. And what I did yesterday with this area was just did my standard low probability risk mitigation plan, which is to put half of my position targets out at a 1-to-1. So when price came in here, right, came in here, it triggered the buy. It went up. You can see here it went up, and I'll actually draw the line for you. I'll put this target as a 1-to-1 instead of our normal 4-to-1. So price came up here, hit this area, so like half of my trade closed out. So when price came back down and then took me out of this trade, I ended up as a break even there. So that's what I typically do if I've got lower probability that something is going to happen for me, or I'm not quite as sure of it. My trade plan says to use the risk mitigation plan, which is again half of the trade off at a 1-to-1, and let the other half go to the 4-to-1. In this case, it protected me from a bigger loss. So mark that as a blue. All right, so just want to show, since we had that zone drawn there, what happened with it and why we did it. So looking at our 15-minute chart here, anything that we want to get into on a short time frame perspective, and as I'm looking down and left, the only area that I still see is corresponding to that 60-minute area, which is a good sign. And so you've got, and really this is 2 zones stacked on top of each other. They are so small, I would probably just go ahead and combine them. But just to be clear, right, it is two zones. Looking up and left, I don't see anything here at all on a shorter time frame, and certainly nothing strong enough that I would take a short in an index market today, given what appears to be overall strength in this. All right, let's take a look at RTY. And we had, let's see here, again, I'm just going to pull up overall context in RTY. We are still fairly low. So context, goes from swing high to swing low. So here's our swing high area up here at 24.64. Swing low is this whole entire line of significant line of support here, right at 2100. And so we're still fairly low in there. So long positions are highly recommended for RTY. And then we've got these areas of interest that we're looking for up here at the 23.34. Again, we're mostly interested in these ones if price comes down and breaks this line of support at 2100. So given that, looking at our 240-minute time frame, we had, we still have the purple line. That's our line to break to change trend. So we're always going to be monitoring that on our 240-minute chart here. And then we came very, very close to this this area of interest right here. Again, these things lined up across. So you had ES, NQ, and RTY, all 4 head zones in the same area, and all 4 of them turned just above those zones. So we know there's a lot of imbalance in this area right now. Looking up and left, nothing else I want to get into, and I'm still would need to see what price does when it gets back down into this area. So going down to our 200 or our 60-minute time frame, we did have two zones drawn here, and one of them did not work at all for us. All right, so we had this one drawn. We had price come in, and it came in and popped out just a tiny little bit, but then dropped down below. So mark this one as a loss. And then looking back at this, we've now created almost the same exact picture we have on NQ, and similar to the ES, where we had these two zone areas. The top one has worked, mostly because of our, the news kind of making that happen a little faster than it would have normally. But this one is already gone, right? So let's draw it up as being used, and then we still interested in this lower one down here as well. Could be only, and mostly because it exists on all three indexes. So if all three indexes stay correlated and drop down to this area, yeah, I would definitely look to try and take a trade or two there. No, we do have this very strong area up here at 23.04 that we can look to take another short on as well. All right, the 15-minute area, let's look for something on a lower time frame here. Bigger picture, we are still sideways trend, so just keep that in mind. As I look down and left, the only area that I have is, again, correlating to that same 60-minute zone here, and then up and left, nothing at all, until we get, again, up to that 60-minute zone. All right, I'm going to look at just the Nikkei real quick, since it's another one of our correlation markets as well as one that's traded, and we actually had a trade that we looked at on this one yesterday, so I want to talk through that as well. And after this, we'll jump over to and look at crypto. We'll spend a little bit of extra time there. I want to go through some of the interesting things that I've seen while expanding out our charting options in the crypto area. So really bigger picture here, we're in this completely sideways trend, right? We need something we got to break out of this before we'll take any long-term trades in any of these indexes here. But this one in particular is even worse. It's the wrong term, but it's even more condensed than even the RTY is, right? Where we've gotten months of this back and forth here. So again, just be very cautious, longer-term trades here. We did have this one on 240 that I thought was very, very strong, and it worked for a period of time. Price came into here and just literally, just hit the entry point. Went up to a 1-to-1 and then dropped us down through. So depending on how you had this set up, if you had it set up as a risk mitigation plan where you had that 1-to-1 target, then you break even on it. If not, then this one ended up being a loss for you. Much stronger zone down below. All right, you want to get kind of outside of this area now. So we're still looking at this area at the 28,133, and then over on the 60-minute chart, we do still have a stronger zone even than the other 241 that we looked at down here at 28,334. You will notice too the Nikkei has formed close to the same picture on the 60-minute as the other U.S. indexes. It didn't have the upper zone, but it does have this lower one as well right here. Again, because it's in all of the same markets, I would draw that one up and certainly look to use that, again, as long as those index markets remain correlated and it comes into that at about the same time. Great opportunity to take a trade there. I won't look at anything lower. Again, just a reminder, volume is fairly low in the Nikkei futures, so you got to be very careful if you try and make trades at lower time frames on things that don't have high volume on them. Okay, for crypto, I just want to show this one on the TradeStation chart first, since this is where I have some of the detailed drawings. I'm going to go back over TradingView and look at several of the crypto markets and try and provide at least some insight into the question that I posed in the title, which is why did we have this big dip over the last couple of weeks in crypto overall. So first of all, context, we do have this daily zone that we hit a couple days ago. We thought was, we believe was very strong. Price hit it and immediately popped back out of it. It looked like it was going to do really well. And then we had a retracement back into the zone. Again, not unusual. It just shows it wasn't quite as strong as what we had originally thought. But price still hasn't come down through here yet and is moving back up again. So there's still a fair amount of strength there. And then when you get down into the 60-minute area is where we had shown that there was a zone here. It was created in that same daily zone. So when price came down, over here to the left of the market, it came down and actually created this zone here. And as I stated, right, there was one reason I was marking this. And the only reason you ever mark a demand zone this low on a chart without any other indicators as you look left here to look for price action around there. The only reason you ever draw a zone here is because it happened within a larger time frame zone. So that's why we called it like this. We said, when price comes back down in here, just watch it. Make sure you get that evidence that price is going to change. And what you see here is you do have the negative divergence on RSI, so that would have given you the indicator to go ahead and take this trade, and it is working out, very, very well. Let's see if it, yep, it would already have hit our normal target. And then just a clarification on this, the reason I haven't taken any trades in Bitcoin is I'm still gathering my data. Our current target is to do it throughout the end of the calendar year, do an evaluation of it first week of January, and then we'll look to see if we're going to add it to the trade plan in the January timeframe. Overall, though, I'm very, very impressed with how well at least the larger Bitcoins or larger cryptocurrencies are responding to our standard supply and demand areas. So that's very positive. It looks like I'm very interested to see what the data shows because I want to trade crypto. I just want to make sure that it follows the plan. Okay, so that's where we're at with Bitcoin, and then I'm going to jump back over to our the TradingView platform to go and look at a couple of other of these, and I've got a whole new watch list set up now to monitor cryptocurrencies. And so I'm going to really stick on the very higher time frames because that's what we're going to get these bigger indicators for. And so when we look at why this dip, right? Why did price come up here and then drop the way that it did? And there's just a couple of points on this. First of all, cryptocurrencies are still relatively new, speaking in the bigger picture of things. So a lot of what we know about other markets that we have data that we can point back to, we don't have for cryptocurrencies. So just please keep that in mind. A lot of this is just speculation, it's opinion, it's extrapolation based on other markets and what we've seen other financial markets do. So is there some expectation that cryptocurrencies can do the same thing? Yeah, to some extent. We also know that generally speaking, everything in the world works on supply and demand. So there certainly is evidence that supply and demand is going to form some sort of this picture, but these are net new enough areas that you can't say that with certainty yet until we have enough data to actually validate it. But so what we're looking at is, do they respond to some of our other indicators? And so that's what we'll look at, especially when we're getting into the cryptocurrencies as they seem to continuously hit either all-time highs or all-time lows where you have no data around. Are they responding to some of our other indications? And so one of the things that I'll point out with Bitcoin, I start with Bitcoin because it's the largest one, and it does seem to kind of be an index of cryptocurrencies to some extent. Where Bitcoin goes, a lot of other currencies seem to follow. So you can use that almost like an index. It's not, right? Just to be clear, right? It is not actually an index. It'll be interesting to see when we get to that point in crypto where some of the exchanges may start creating an index of crypto that we could potentially trade. That'll be a lot of fun when that happens. But again, so I start with Bitcoin just because it's the largest one, obviously the oldest one too. So we have the most data for it. So I was talking with a friend of mine who's a crypto miner, and about what was happening as Bitcoin was coming up into these areas up here, right, hitting new all-time highs into the 68,000 range. And he was talking to me about just strength of the market overall, and I pointed out to him, and so you can see here in the lower part of the chart, this is my RSI indicator. Had just massive divergence here, and I'm not 100% used to using TradingView for marking up things, so just bear with me as I have to get some of this stuff right. But you can see here, right, this is massive, or significant negative divergence between your price and your RSI marker down here. And I said, look, there is a correction coming, and sure enough, that's one of the indicators that does seem to work. Even in crypto that we use in our standard trading as well. So we saw that negative divergence coming on a daily chart, and sure enough, that really did drive price down, and then it put it right back down into our daily zones. We saw that on the TradeStation chart. So we've got this is again a really good indication that our principles are working even in crypto, and that's a good explanation of why Bitcoin at least came down the way it did, and then why it stopped and why it came back up. So flipping over, so we'll go to Ethereum, and what I did here for this list, it's actually in market cap order, so the largest cryptocurrencies on down. When I look at trying to find like a bigger picture overall for any currency, you want to start with the biggest markets and work your way down through that, because those ones are going to tend to drive price overall. So as I look at this one, what we see here is we didn't get quite the same view on Ethereum as we got on Bitcoin, right? These two markers right here, areas, would be those same ones that we saw that pure negative divergence on. And so we never actually set a new high in Ethereum over here. But what you do have, just again to kind of look at this picture overall, you had this starting from right here. You had this very, massive, increase day over day of price. And then when you looked at your RSI, you were completely flat. Technically speaking, that's still negative divergence, right? You got one going one direction and one going a different one. So it wasn't out of expectation to see that we were going to kind of drop from there, and then you still could have used this next view again combined with what Bitcoin was doing to understand that it may have dropped. Now what you are seeing though is Ethereum didn't drop as far as Bitcoin did. So just interesting to note that not quite as strong of a corrective move indicated, and then not as strong of a corrective move that was actually executed here. So let's go down into our next one, and here we've got USD. And this one, when you get a chart like this, right? This one, I believe, if I remember correctly, this is one of the ones that just tries to mimic the dollar. So you'll see price is going to stick right at the $1 range here, and it's going to spike above or below. Just curious, as for some of these, this is the first time I'm seeing any of these charts as well. So just want to see on an hourly basis, like, is there anything that we could really make use of and really isn't? The only thing you could potentially do here, depending on the trading platform that you had, is, and just to be really clear, right, this is more of a, call it a gambling strategy than it is a trading strategy. But since the target here is $1, right, you could set up automatic trades somewhere like up in like a 1.01 or something like that. That just if price hits there, you just automatically sell, or if price drops down below to like a 99.4, something like that, you automatically buy, and then just know you're gonna pick up really incremental profit margins on this, just because it's going to spike back and forth. But yeah, nothing really that we can get here. So DOT, and I'm not, so TradingView doesn't show me what the actual name of the full cryptocurrency is, so bear with me as I either try and figure that out or we just call it by its short name. So going back to a daily chart here, we've got so close to the same view as we had on something like Ethereum. In a little bit you can see this double tap here or on the daily chart, but this really didn't give us a good solid indication that anything was going to drop precipitously. And if I just jump on a weekly chart to see if there's anything further back, yeah, that was an all-time high, so really wasn't any good way to, well, actually I take that back. So what we have here on a weekly chart is so you had this indication. Let me just draw this real quick. So here you had a really good indication on the weekly chart back in May that this change that this drop was coming because of that negative RSI. And then when you never reset RSI because it didn't go back below the 30 line on the bottom there. And so as price continued to go up, let's drop from here to here, you still had the negative. Actually, did we? No, that's not quite. I wouldn't call that negative divergence. So I won't say that this was an expected move here. So yeah, now not a whole lot of indications on DOT here. So Dogecoin. Let's look at that on a daily chart because that's where we found the Bitcoin one at, and we had we did see the negative divergence on RSI here, very, very clear, right? So this was another one of the ones that's a very good indicator. You had sorry, I had wrong one. Let me move that over. So here you had previous high and a new one on top of that, and then you had negative divergence on RSI on your chart. So this is just a really good indication. This was another one where you could definitely see that this correction was coming, and again, it's responding to the same indicators that we're looking at even on our other trading areas. So AVAX, no real indication here on the daily chart, and let's just see if we were responding to any all-time highs. So we weren't responding to any zones here, so can't really use this one as any clear indicator. Shibu, let's see on a daily. No, we had nothing here. Again, it just didn't follow the same one either. You ended up hitting this, what now you could call a line of resistance. Obviously, there's no zone here, so that's why it's not an actual supply zone. But we've got now what seems to be a pretty clear line of resistance. If price came back up to here again, I would probably high probability that it's not going to go above there unless there's some other significant factor. But you will see here the reason why price, or it looks like the reason why price has stopped at this point is you do have a daily zone right here. Just try a little bit lower to make sure that we capture that. But that's probably a pretty good indication of where price is not going to go too much lower than this either. You do have a little bit of an additional one right below it. So let's keep that in mind for if you are trading this one. Going to Matic, and here we didn't get a drop yet. So you've got one that is clearly not directly responding to Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the other bigger names, but we are seeing literally right now, as this is happening in the last couple of days, this negative divergence on RSI as well. So you've got pretty good indication that we may see a drop in this one as well. And let's just quick look on the weekly chart to see if we are responding to any supply zones. We are not, other than kind of like the same thing we had on Shibu, where you may end up with a line of resistance here because you don't have zones yet. But again, as I'm looking at this chart, right, just on a weekly perspective, you're looking at where price is changing at. Again, validation that the supply and demand process works. Get a perfect weekly zone right here, which prices responded drastically to, and you had another weekly zone right here, which again price responded to. So just good indicators that we can actually chart these according to the methods that we use, with high probability that price is actually going to move as we see it. All right, CRO. Actually, yeah, good to start with the weekly. There's nothing here on a weekly perspective. Let's look on a day. So the only thing that we have here is just, I mean, technically speaking, you had negative divergence on RSI, but again, this thing is so new, it would have been really hard to even think about using it. But somewhat of an indicator that you were going to get a price correction here. But again, I wouldn't have done anything with it. Now, interestingly enough, right, when you've got this zone right here on a daily chart, it went right down through it. So this may be one of those ones where the volume is too low, or there's something else affecting it rather than just pure supply and demand. Now let's go to WB. So this is the wrapped Bitcoin, I think. So this is going to respond very similar to the actual Bitcoin itself, and you'll see you've got the same formation here that we had on Bitcoin, so no need to get into that. Look at Litecoin. We did not have the negative divergence there that we had with Bitcoin. This one's a little bit older, so maybe there's something on a weekly. Okay. So interestingly enough, and I won't go deep into this, but just something to note that we'll have to talk about later on. And there are actually other YouTube videos up as well. As a matter of fact, Chuck Fulkerson, who's an instructor that I used to listen to quite a bit, has a really good video on wick over wick. If you want to look that up until we can get something out that may explain it in a little bit better detail, a little bit more clearer from our trading plan. But when you have this these wick over wick area here, which is basically the candles come down, and I wish I could zoom in on this better. So this wick over wick, right, you have two candles that start and end at the exact same place, and the wicks are almost the exact identical length as each other right in this area here. That gives you a good indication that there's something else going on in there. There's probably a zone. Now, when we look at the daily time frame, I don't think we saw, actually, okay, we did. So yeah, so you go down to the next level down, and it's not the cleanest zone in the world, but you do have a zone right here. And when you come over, sure enough, we hit that. So Litecoin, this drop is due to actual supply and demand, not to just an indicator because it hit a new all-time high. And then on a daily time frame, we do have this area right here that, worked to hold it up. It's a lower probability one because there's nothing behind it. But in the end, it does seem to be working, and again, probably because it coincides with some of the other daily zones that we've seen on a few of the other cryptocurrencies. So I got a couple more, and then I want to jump back over to just a quick end with a quick look at oil, gold, and then a forex look. All right, Uniswap on let's again back to the weekly context just to see if we're hitting any actual zones itself. So this drop came from this area over here, which we're not seeing anything. It didn't, and it did. It stopped right in this weekly zone right here. So here was your, and actually this was a very high probability one as you did that whole look left thing as actually, I'm sorry, I missed this. That is not a good zone because of this wick coming right down through it. Never mind, I didn't even see that. It was buried in the volume bar there, but you can see this wick for this one came all the way down. That zone didn't exist, so never mind. All right, when I look at a daily time frame just to see if there was anything over here to the left that this reacted to, and it didn't. I would have put a zone right here. There is still one. But yeah, no real clear indication of why we had this. And it wasn't really the same drop that Bitcoin has had, right? This really has kept it right in that same area of white space. So not a whole lot to look at there. One more real quick. Let me jump out of here. All right. So, yeah. So nothing here to look at in a weekly chart. We knew we did come up into some area over here, but again, that was the first week it was open, so I wouldn't really rely on data too much there. Just because, let's look at it on a daily chart. Yeah, there was no actual like zone formation that we would have been interested in. So getting back over to here, we didn't really have any more of that same drop either. So it looks like some of these smaller cryptocurrencies aren't really responding the same way, you know, to something like, you know, Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the bigger ones. So we're probably not going to see, you know, much of a correlation in them. Anyways, interesting look at kind of how some of the bigger cryptocurrencies are working, you know, in correlation with each other, and then which ones aren't. And again, we'll continue to do deeper dives into crypto and have a full educational session that we'll do on that, hopefully in the near future. And then we'll keep you guys updated on our own progress too, as we look to start trading crypto starting either later this month or probably early January timeframe. All right, let me flip back over to our TradingView, or sorry, TradeStation platform. I want to look at just a couple of other futures here. We've got about 8 minutes left. So oil. So we had on the, let me just start real quick on the daily time frame here. I'll zoom in on this, and daily we're still looking to come back up to this area here before we're interested in taking anything. This massive drop, massive sell candle right here just prevents us from really doing anything on the higher time frames. On the 240-minute chart, we were coming back out of this same area. That, you know, we said if it was going to work, it was going to be a smaller move, and sure enough, you know, on the third time in, it moved, you know, at least about a 1-to-1 out of there, but again, that's not what we're looking for. And so just so you know, so entry points for a lot of my trades when I draw them out, I know that oil typically doesn't respect the very, very top line of these zones more often than not, so I usually draw my entry points lower in them. But just to be clear on that, right, if you drew this the exact way that we start drawing zones, you would have had your entry point right here at 70.37, which means you would have actually gotten into this trade, and you'd be up, you know, almost a 2-to-1 right now. As long as price does not break this area up here at 73.40, I'm still interested in taking a trade if we drop down in here and maybe get just a quick retrace down into the zone. If we get that, then look for this move. Then it would push it up past this whole zone area. This might be a good one to get in for a longer term trade here. All right, on a 60-minute time frame, we've got another zone on 60 minutes that's right below that 240-minute area. Again, I'd be looking for a longer move out of this one, just because of where we are in overall context. But as you can see now, as price has changed coming out of that 240 area, we're actually creating almost the same look that we had in the indexes, oddly enough, on our 60-minute chart, where we are creating these smaller demand zones every couple of hours. So again, indications that, you know, we've got a stronger overall move up out of here. So these are ones you would just watch, right? And then look at a lower time frame, make sure the price is actually changing in them. I wouldn't take them automatically because except for get down into this lower area here, this might be a good one because you've already price movement up here. As we've come up through this area, you've taken out this previous these previous zones. You've got this area here that it's responding to right now. Not technically a zone, but you can at least understand there's a little bit of imbalance here. So that's why price is responding to it. I wouldn't expect this to change the direction at all. It'll push us right back down and allow us to pick up one of these other zones as a nice retracement trade and get back in this. All right, on a 15-minute time frame, we're coming up to an area of imbalance that we just want to pay attention to. It's not the reason why it's not a automatic trade. Price actually retraced right into it. We talked about this yesterday on the session. So it's been used. It's also in a sideways trend as well overall. So you just got to be cautious of there. But it does look like price seems to be responding to this area fairly strongly. Another zone right above it that is stronger. I would definitely look to take that one if price gets up there. And then looking down and left, we're seeing some of the same areas we saw in the 60-minute chart. This one right here, and I'm going to draw it just a couple of ticks down into it more. This is I would say a fairly strong area right here that I'm going to mark as an actual trade to take. All right. Let's do gold very quickly. And I want to just kind of, because so this is all we need to see in gold. 240-minute chart, we know we're coming out of this area down here, and price can't break anything up here. We're just going back and forth, back and forth. So low odds today. I want to look at these zones that I drew in the 15-minute yesterday, and sure enough, we had one of them that would have worked out great, and one that didn't. And this is again kind of proving my point of why I struggle trading gold on lower time frames for some reason. But you do see, like, if you'd have put both of these trades in, right, one of them, the first one, you'd have been stopped out immediately. So, a 1-to-1 loss. Oops. Here. But then the other one, if you were in, it would have been a fantastic trade. It would have been a 4-to-1 win for you. So overall, you would have been very profitable taking these two trades right here. All right, and then anything else that I'm interested in here? Yeah, I'm going to look down and left. Nope, I am not. All right, let's take a quick look at bonds. Those did spike as well with the news from this morning. And I'll really just kind of set context here. 240-minute chart. We talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were doing our deeper dive into the bonds. Look, we've got this trend line right here, and we said we were looking for price to come down, hit this zone, and then come up through it. If price came up through this line first and broke it significantly, then we wouldn't be as interested in taking this area here. But it's really going to depend on this area right here. It's not just, and just be clear, right, this is not a zone because there are no other qualifications it meets other than the exact structure itself. It's too low in here. There's no other, odds enhancers for us. But this area here might push price back down below here. If it does, if this area holds and goes down here, I would take this trade. If this area right here doesn't hold and price goes up above it, then that trade would be off completely. So I'll mark this as just an area of interest for us to watch. Okay, and I'm going to go to the US because I do want to look at the Euro USD here real quick before we end as well. And so the same setup here, except we haven't broken that line yet. So the US may push TY back down again. And again, if this zone hits down here, area of interest hits at the same time as that zone on TY, great odds enhancer. Absolutely look to take that trade moving up. And then we'll finish here with Euro USD just to get a quick Forex look. And just because it's on the chart here, a daily chart, we're still back and forth. We haven't really gone anywhere. Just to take a look at this one right here that I had drawn up yesterday. And we came down very close to it. If you got in this one, it would have been a 1-to-1, but other than that, it was not a profitable trade for us. I was not expecting that much of a move on the dollar yesterday, honestly. So just pop that one out, and then where are we at on the bigger context here? We're in a completely sideways trend, so just be cautious of that. We do have this area. This is a zone on a zone right here that I just drew as 1. However, if you get an indicator like you're outside of the Bollinger Bands, or there's negative divergence on RSI on like a 15-minute time frame, look to take something in here. But otherwise, I would just be very cautious of this area, and I'm not seeing anything else that's of interest at this point in our Forex chart. All right, we'll go ahead and close with that for the day. Again, thank you guys very much for joining. Thanks for participating. Again, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below the video, and we'll get back to you to answer those as quickly as we can. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when we release new educational videos. Since it's Friday, have a great and wonderful, safe trading day and a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday at 8:15 Eastern Time for another review of our day trading setups.